Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you are in the country. Just want to welcome everybody to today's session. This is the foundational session for this month's out of home office hours. I'm Scott Fischetti from Geopath, and I'm joined on the session today, as always, with Brian Schopper, who I'm probably on mute right now. But
Hi, everybody.
oh, there he is. Hey. And just want to welcome everybody. And, over the past few months, hopefully everyone's noticed that we've been producing a hopefully bunch of necessary and valuable materials related to COVID-19. And we wanted to just use today's session to, one, walk through the list of everything that we've been providing so everyone knows what's available to them and where to find it. And then we're also going to walk through the two new data solutions that we released over the last 2 months. Just give a quick walkthrough of those. I know we've done a couple of webinars on each of those, but thought it'd be worth just giving a refresher to everybody. And then we'll also go into the Insight Suite like we typically do on these foundational sessions and just walk through any new updates to the Insight Suite, some new features and functionality that we think everybody would be that would be valuable for everybody to know about. Want to say if you have any questions, please ask them right along. We'll try our best to answer the questions in the moment, but we'll do our best there. And we do ask that you try to use the question widget versus the chat feature. Just makes it a little easier for us to track the questions. And if there's no other housekeeping things, I'm just going to jump right into it and want to talk about, like I said, some of the information available to everybody related to COVID-19. So two of the biggest things that were released were the daily mobility dashboard and the impression variation dashboard. So there are, again, two new data solutions. The daily mobility dashboard is used for kind of, as it says here, day-to-day monitoring of population activity. And it's at the CBSA level and state level. And I'll dig a little deeper into that in a moment. And then the other tool that was released on May 15th, I believe, is the impressions variation dashboard. And so that is related to being able to help our members quantify the changes kind of week to week in terms of impression changes within the market due to the stay-at-home orders and COVID-19 essentially. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of those and then some of the other reports that we've been producing. So in terms of the daily mobility dashboard, that was released on about 2 months ago on April 14th. And as I said already, it's this day-to-day monitoring of population activity. And again, it's important to know it's at the CBSA level and at the state level, the information. Oops. Oh, I do apologize. Can I do one thing? There's something that seems to be, oh, sorry, something got out of place here. Sorry, I apologize here. Let me do one thing. Well, sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I do apologize. There we go. Let me just double check it. Has everybody seen my screen again?
Scott, I can still see it.
Okay, great. Sorry, I just wasn't expecting this slide to come next when I was originally looking at it. So sorry. So this tool is available in the dashboard. That was going to be my end slide for this. So the big reveal is already done. So anyway, this is available in the Insight Suite. And what I wanted to tell you about right now is a kind of quick overview. So I think the key things to think about when you're thinking about the dashboard are it's the benchmark for comparison is it's average daily miles traveled for all 2019. So that is kind of that mark, that level mark you're going to see, and things will either vary above or below that in percentage. And when Brian kind of goes into that and shows the tool, we can definitely point that out. And this data is updated every day. And I have an asterisk by that and an extra period you can see there. But the asterisk is just indicating, you may have seen the notice that came out earlier in the week about some of the updating of the data. So this is maybe a little bit delayed for the dashboard as well as the impression variation dashboard as well. But guidance when looking and using this tool. So the activity dashboard, the intended use is to help our members understand travel trends by market, again, as impacted by the regulations, and to just help us monitor and understand when we start to get back to what everybody's calling the new normal, so to speak, because nobody knows what the end result of everything is going to be, and what will that new leveling of kind of movement and activity be. And so this will help us gauge that. And we do have some new data coming out that I'll talk about in a moment, where we're starting to actually to get close back to some normal levels. You'll start to see. I do want to say that this data is not intended, again, with the mobility dashboard, it's not intended to be a substitution for impression delivery. So if you see overall activity down, doesn't mean that it's proportionally down to impressions. So it's not, should not be applied as a factor to impressions number as a distance traveled, because it's not a perfect predictor of traffic volume. So again, I just often want to caution that it's really about helping us understand population movement and activity. And the other product that we released is the impression variation dashboard, and that was on May 15th, just over a month ago. And this allows members to understand the week-to-week impression variations. And the data, if you've been in the tool, you'll know this already, but if you haven't, it's by media format and by market. And again, looking at CBSA level information here. So again, helping members understand the impression variation based on, again, media format and market. Again, this is also available in the Insight Suite. This specifically you'll find in the reports module of the Insight Suite. But again, we will go to we'll go show you exactly where to find that when we jump into the tool. So in terms of the impression variation dashboard overview, again, I know I've said this once already, but again, it's intended to help members understand that kind of variation in impressions, and it also provides a lot of confidence intervals by market and by product as well. And again, we can show you where that is, so you can get an understanding of the plus or minus of the confidence intervals. And we're leveraging near real-time device level data to calculate this, and we get data each week, and it's from mobile location services that we are leveraging this data for, and able to use that to model the information out. And again, this is available at CBSA level, and it's updated weekly, but again, there's a 2-week offset. So the data that goes in this week is actually for the 2 weeks prior, and it's labeled as such, but just so there's always constantly data going in, but it's got that 2-week offset. And again, just know, again, we sent out a notice earlier in the week where we're still processing some of that data for this week's update. So do apologize on that as well.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
I actually, speaking to that point, I got a question about exactly that earlier today, just to sort of further what you were saying. It was basically asking, I'm looking at data around mid-May, can you tell me why that is? And it's basically like you said exactly, Scott, there's a 2-week offset of when the data is loaded in, but because of that delay, there's I guess about a week, maybe not quite, but about a week additional difference just because of that delay. So if we're in here, or if you were in here later and you see about data from about mid-May, that would explain why it's a few weeks behind now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I apologize that, and we're again our product team and data partners, we're working to get that data into the system as quickly as possible. And so again, this again is more of a directional data set. So I know there's the temptation to want to apply it to individual units or plans, but the intended use is as a directional data set, because the data illustrates kind of, as I said, the average variation by media type and by market across the US compared to Geopath's original 2020 forecast, as it says here. So again, it's not intended to be, and is not provided rather, at the individual unit level. Again, these are average by media type, by CBSA, and should be used as such to provide directional guidance on these. So when these came out, there's also additional support, because I know sometimes there might be questions on the methodology used, or how should we interpret these, these impressions, and these are specifically for the impression variation report. There's 3 documents that you should be able to find in the tool, as well as on our website, on the homepage of our website, as well as in the Geek Out library. So there's 3 places you can find that. So there's how to interpret the reports, frequently asked questions, as well as the methodology overview for the document. And there's also a quick video tutorial right there. Again, it's in the same places you can find that, and it gives a walkthrough of just how to click through and how to pull data from the variation dashboard as well. And again, there's also FAQs and a methodology document for the mobility dashboard as well. But I think to some extent that's a little bit maybe more straightforward. So additional COVID-19 support that we've been producing, and hopefully you've been seeing in our newsletters and being able to access these reports. One of them is our top 100 DMA reports. So this is leveraging the data from the mobility dashboard, so average daily miles traveled. But again, it's being applied to the top 100 DMAs. So again, if you recall in the dashboard, it's CBSA data and state data. So we're able to pull out, we wanted to do additional reporting for our members as well. So again, top 100 DMAs that we've been producing. I believe we're on our 3rd version of this that we just put out this week, and there'll be another one coming out next week. I also want to say, yeah, maybe you're not sitting in one of the 100 DMAs. If you need additional data, please, you can reach out to us in Geek Out, and we can work to get you the data you need. So I just want to make that clear as well. I know the report focuses on the top 100, but again, if you're in a different DMA and you need data, reach out to us and we could work to help get that data for you. Another recent report that came out, I do want to make a note too. This data is available to the industry. It's not for members only. Again, we wanted to make sure some of this data was for the good of the overall advertising industry getting out there. This top 10 spenders in out of home by DMA, this is in the Geek Out library, and it's because we're leveraging Kantar data for it. So we're not able to kind of share that beyond our membership right now, at least. And so if you do, again, need this data, again, reach out. You can go to the Geek Out library. It's sourced from, as I said, from Kantar. And again, similarly, if you need a DMA that you're not seeing in there, please, again, reach out to us at geekout@geopath.org. The email's right there. And we're happy to help pull that data for you. Again, this is available in the Geek Out library. And then another thing that we've been producing weekly, and there's one of these that will come out by the end of this afternoon, and we have a newsletter all ready to go, but it's been a what we've been calling our mobility update report. So we've been continuing to pull data from, leveraging the data in the mobility dashboard and trying to update it by state for everybody. And also nationally, there's a one page that's always there that gives the national trend of what you're seeing. And so again, all of these past reports, as well as the one that will come out later today, this is available. The link is an open link that anybody in the industry can download. But for members, you can also just go in and download any of these past reports in the Geek Out library as well. And one last thing that we did, there was a Nielsen fielded study, as it says here, around April 30th, and it was about a 2-week or 1-week period that it was open. And again, it's around data around the consumer sentiment in light of the COVID-19 crisis. So we got that information, looked at it, and kind of put a little blog together. And this information is, while the report isn't available, I don't believe on the blog, there is some insights that we were able to pull from it and provide to our members. So again, it's on our blog, and that's just blog.geopath.org if you want to look at that information. And we've been trying to keep a running list in our newsletters as we push out new information. So it's all also consolidated there as well. I do want to pause before I hand it off to Brian to just check in to see if there's any questions that anybody had on any of the information that we've talked about so far.
Yeah, I didn't see anything come in just yet, but
Okay. Great. So I'm going to hand it off to Brian, where he's going to start to do a walkthrough of the Insight Suite and show everybody kind of a quick overview of the dashboard as well, or both dashboards, as well as some of the new updates to the Insight Suite itself.
Yep, sounds good. Scott, can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, great. And again, if anybody has questions along the way, please feel free to just send them in. Yeah, so this is the Explore module of the Insight Suite. I have a feeling there might be some people on here who aren't familiar with it. I'll come back to this in a minute and sort of do a general lay of the land here, but I want to head over to the two dashboards that Scott mentioned at the beginning, so we can just sort of get a look at what those look like. Yeah, so this is the Explore view. This is the daily mobility dashboard. So the one that Scott was talking about, it's got for roughly every day. It's not fully updated just yet, but just changes in traffic and daily miles traveled over the course of this whole year. I guess back until December 31st of 2019. But so the way that you can go about doing this, you could either zoom in and select a specific market. So say I wanted to pick Salt Lake City or something like that. I could click a single market and that will populate with a few different charts over here on the right-hand side. So daily miles traveled by the individual day. So you can see there's kind of dips at the end of the weeks, it looks like. Here's rolling average and then percent change over the course of the year. And then you can, if you wanted to, I think control click and you can select others. So I can add as many of them that way as I want. And then
sorry. And just one note, if you're on a Mac, it would be the command button
yes.
you push to add additional DMAs. And you can see here that on the chart on the right, the top one, that 0%, that represents that baseline. And so it's above, we said that the changes against the 2019 annual average, that's what that 0% represents. So you're going above or below that.
Yep, exactly. There's one other way, or one other main way, I guess, that you can select. So say I wanted to select a handful of ones that were in, the state of California or something. If you click on the map and then you drag like this, you can see sort of as I go, they highlight. But once you release your click and drag, it should pull up. I mean, it's a lot of CBSAs all at once, but so you can see there's quite a lot over here. And you can change your day that you're viewing. If you wanted to do that, you can go back and look at other sort of days throughout the year. If you scroll down here to this button down here, if you hover over it, it says download. And then by clicking that, you're able to export as an image or a PDF, or I guess as a PowerPoint as well, but you can export this chart data here. But if you wanted to export that as a report, you could head over to this report tab up here. And when I did that, there was an option to check by CBSA or by state. And it's basically the same thing here. You basically, hover and select a few or click and command click or control click and get a few that way. And then the same thing, just the download button here at the end or at the bottom. And again, it's, you can change some of the dates on here. You can do pretty much what you can do here. It's just a little bit a little bit of difference in the export.
Yeah, in the report, the charts are bigger as well, and hopefully easy to look at and review and use.
So then the daily or the impression variation dashboard, which is just below that. If you're in the Insight Suite using the bar on the left hand side, just so you know, there daily mobility here, and then the Insights variation just below it. Functionality wise, it's very, very similar. I won't really change anything yet because there's a handful of CBSAs already chosen, but you can see if I scroll down here along this side or along this left half over here, we can see the CBSA names, and then these are the construction types. So you can see CBSA name and then the different media types here. And then week by week, you can see the impression variation. So this represents the percentage of what the average would have been, or what the expected annual average number would have been. So for example, these murals in the Boston Cambridge CBSA for the week of March 2nd delivered 91.4 of their expected impressions. And you can use these filters up here to select different media types, different construction types. Again, you can drag your date ranges and change that here, either with the calendar or the sliders. You can use this button here to access the confidence intervals, as Scott was mentioning earlier. And basically the same thing as you could for the other one. If you come down here to this bottom download button, you can download the report or the map or the reports or the charts in a few different ways using this. Yeah. Anything else? Any questions about this? I'm just
No
checking to see.
question, but there's one nice feature. If you don't mind clicking over to the confidence interval area,
Yes.
there's one feature that I was playing around with earlier today that I thought was really nice. So you can see in the upper top here where it says CBSA name, there's a drop-down menu, and you can actually just, if you want to, just scroll through and click on or off the CBSAs you want to look at. You can do it that way as well.
Search as well, it looks like. Yeah. So you could search as well. Yeah, that's a very handy feature. That's a great point.
I thought that was a nice feature. And again, this shows you the same information as on the other page, but also includes the confidence interval there as well.
Great. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions about these as we're going through sort of the rest of today, yeah, just feel free to enter them in the questions area. So I'm going to head over to the Explore module and do a little bit of a lay of the land, like I said, of, for just for anybody who might not be familiar with how the Insight Suite and the Explore module are laid out. And also, for anyone who has maybe not been in the past couple of weeks, there have been some pretty significant additions to the Insight Suite and some redesigns of a few things that I think are really exciting and really helpful. So we'll go through those today as well. This is the Explore module, as I mentioned. You can jump between modules over on this left-hand bar. That's what I've been doing just to switch between the dashboards and this one. And you'll notice for anyone who is maybe familiar with the way the Insights or the Explore module is laid out, you may notice there's this purple floating button here now. And this allows us to access 3 different libraries within the Insight Suite. And I'll show how to use the population library and the places library in a second. But when we're in the inventory library, that's the default view of the Explore module. So if you are at all familiar with the Explore module and you've used it before this feature was added, you were looking at the inventory library sort of by default. Most of the functionality of the Explore module is done by these tabs up here at the top and also the menu on the left-hand bar here. And this is currently loading in my spots for right now across the entire US, just because I haven't set another kind of filter or anything. But what you can do here in the Define Target tab is you can select your audience, which we have over 8,000 different audience variables in the Insights Suite. Let me just open this up. So they're broken out into 3 categories. The population category is largely in line with the census and in line with our legacy data. It's demographic data to that effect. So, household profiles, income, children in the home, rent, mortgage, things like that. All sort of the demographic categories that you would expect. Certain behaviors, which are really like commute to work and employment and things like that. Language spoken in the home is a really interesting one. I like this one a lot. So that's one of the categories. You can combine a good handful of the metrics or the audiences within here can be combined with each other, but that's only within the population category right now. You can't combine between categories and you can't combine within any of the other ones. So it's just kind of limited right now to the population. And that was done basically to make the transition from our legacy data or legacy systems to this system a lot smoother, in that you could pull basically every audience that you could run in ADS, our legacy system, you can run here by combining these. So that's why that's set up this way, but these will be able to be combined in the future. Consumer profiles is a big majority of those 8,000 audiences that are in here. They're broken out into a handful of different categories like automobile ownership, environmentalism, financial, food, beverage, psychographics, restaurants. So there's a ton of different categories in here. And then finally, the third category is Prism Premier, which is Claritas's segmentation product. And actually all of the audience information in here, all of our audiences are from our partners at Claritas. And Prism Premier is their segmentation product. So every household in the US is broken up into one of these 68 segments, and they're all just kind of socioeconomically similar. But so that's one of the things you can do with the Define Target tab. The other you can use is the Assign Market function, which allows you to geographically filter your inventory. So you could do it by either DMA, CBSA, or county. And also when you apply a market filter like this, it also sets your in-market versus your out-of-market audience. So by me clicking this New York DMA, for example, by setting that as my market, I would both geographically filter out any inventory that's outside of the DMA. And I would also say my in-market metrics are now anyone who lives within this DMA, and my out-of-market metrics are anybody outside, or from anyone who lives outside.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Hey, before you leave this section, or the defined target section, there's a question about the prism segmentation.
Yes.
Can you show how you could find out more information about the prism segments?
Yes, I definitely can. It's a great question too, because these names are a little kind of vague and I guess a little meaningless if you don't know what they are. So if you come into the bottom left or bottom right hand corner to this help button, and then you were to search for really any of these, say I wanted to search country squires, number 5, country squires. There is a little sort of help article for each of the segments in here, just a little bit about who these people are. But if you click this sort of external link button up in the right-hand corner, this will take you to our support site for the Insight Suite, it has articles for each of these and also expanded information on all of the audiences that are in here and just sort of some more source information like that. But there's also, because this is Claritas's product, there's tons of great information online if you wanted to search around as well. I found a great PDF earlier about all of the segments. So there's some really great stuff out there too, if you wanted a little bit more information. So that's a majority of what you can do with the Define Target tab. And you can also here set your campaign length. When we were in the Workspace module in a little while down the line today, you can get more specific with the amount of weeks that you run your campaigns against, but just for this sake, it's limited to these 5. And the other really main function house of the Explore module is this filter inventory tab. And basically everything in here is just a different way to narrow down this 730,000 spots or panels down to something more usable or something more appropriate for whatever you're working on. So you can do it, by the operators themselves. If you have some Geopath IDs, or maybe you have the operators IDs as well, you can paste those in here, and that'll bring you right to the specific units you want. I'm just kind of giving like an overall overview of this because I won't spend too much time in this part of the Explore module, but and you can also, of course, you can filter by things like media, by the placement and the media types and all that. So, if you wanted to find bulletins or transit shelters, or if you wanted to go, based on things that are digital or non-digital, or say you wanted to go based on, is it roadside, is it place-based, is it fleet? You could do things like that as well. So that's kind of in a large sense, a majority of what you can, how you use the Explore module in this sense. Again, I won't be really using it too much for my example today, just because I want to show some other newer features, but just, as a bit of an overview for everyone. But, and again, if there are any questions as we're going through, please feel free to send those in. So I think at the beginning I mentioned that we had a few different libraries within here now. This was a sort of newer feature. Let's start with the Places library, because this was in here at one point in the past as actually our Places module, and has just kind of undergone a little bit of a shift in where it lives, but the functionality is largely the same. So the way that this Places module or the Places library now works is it's basically just a big points of interest search. And there's a lot that you can do with this, and a lot of really cool features you can use to bring this into the other parts of the Insight Suite as well. So let's take a look. I wanted to look for some office depots. That was the business that I wanted to look up, or the point of interest. And so when I do a search first in the Places library, it does a national search, which, it's a lot of results. You can see here over on the right-hand side. And if I were to open up this top result, this Office Depot one here, 881 places, this is definitely the one that I'm looking for. And you can see it kind of returns any result that's remotely in line with your search. But let me just open up that Office Depot one. And when you do that, you can actually see a full list of all of the different locations that it pulled up with their addresses and everything. But this is even still huge. This is way too much for me to work with. So let's say, for example's sake, let me just, so I just opened up this more location tools And within here, there are a ton of different filters and a lot of different ways that you can actually make this, just net this down a little bit. But let's say for my example today, I'm going to be working in the Salt Lake City DMA. So let's search Salt Lake. And you can see it comes up with county, DMA, even city limits, which is cool. So I'm just going to do at the DMA level and hit refine. There we go, 5. A lot more workable. So let's take a look a little bit closer. Okay, so it looks like here's the office depots. They're kind of spread around in this area. And if I go back to my find and define tab, I could also open that up with the purple arrow right here. And the same thing, if I click on the Office Depot name, I get my list with addresses and all that. And now from here, what I can do is if I come to the floppy disk save icon on the bottom, I can save this to either a place set or I can add it to an existing place set. And basically what this means is I can just, save this for later and then use this in, add this to my planning. I can map this out really easily. I can make some custom maps and things like that. So it just makes it a lot easier to use once you have a saved place set and it's saved to your account. Similarly, if you save an inventory set, then it's also saved to your account. It's just really helpful to have, saved assets like this. So we'll just call this SLC Office Depot. Okay, success.
Right. And as you're doing that, Brian, oftentimes we'll get questions about I have a list of points of interest. Can I upload them to the Insight Suite and just create a place set that way? At this point, not yet. That is functionality that is on the roadmap that we're working towards. A quick workaround is just essentially doing to some extent what Brian just did. That's one of the workarounds. So if you have, I received an example like this similarly where they were looking at 9 locations of a chain all around the country. I was able to just type in Salt Lake City or Houston or Dallas and just keep on finding that one. And like Brian did, he saved it to, he created a place set. And if you can also just keep adding to that place set and therefore creating your list of points of interest across the country. So that's one way to do it. Brian, I think you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so there are a lot of different filtering options that you can use, such as you could draw a polygon around an area, so you wanted to sort of surround a certain area, or you wanted to draw a radius, starting at a certain point, you could draw it out. I think foot by foot, you get to see how far you're drawing. You can also filter by different place types. So this one, I have the office supply and stationery store option, industries as well, brands. So say if I search something like coffee as a broad example, let's just see that real quick. Coffee. Oh, I have to know how to spell it first. Sorry about that. Only some of the letters are doubled up. Yeah, so 14,000 results for coffee. That's a ton. That's pretty broad. But if I come down to something like the brand filter, I can see, okay, you know what? I want Caribou and I also want Pete's and maybe I want, Blue Bottle coffee as well. And then I can hit refine. Oh, I didn't even have to, it just does it. But you can see now I've got 3 different lists of each of these. And I could go in and, if I wanted to save a full list of all the nationwide Caribou coffees, I could do that. And then I could save, each of these individually. So there's a lot that you can do with these other filters as well. So that now that we've got my, it's gone now, but now that we've got my set of those 5 office depots, let me head over to the population library and talk about this, because this is another new feature as well, or relatively new as well. But so the population library is basically a place for us to visualize out where the visualize out how the 8,000 different audiences we have break out across the US. So you can do here, let me open up the defined population. So right now we're looking at the whole US, and this is broken out by DMA. And right now this is just against total population, which is persons 0+. So this isn't really showing us terribly much other than, I guess, population. But we can go into the select population tab here. And this is laid out exactly like it is in the other view of the Explore module. So the population category, consumer profiles category, Prism Premier category. But I, as I was going through and preparing for this, I found an Office Depot and a couple Office Depot audiences. So let's just choose, has used in the last 12 months, just for office supplies or services or anything. So just those who have been to an Office Depot in the last 12 months. And so now I'm going to hit apply, and this will do this at the DMA level at first. And so you can see sort of the top ones by, this is sorting composition percentage high to low, but you could do low to high or composition index low to high or high to low. And you can see, so here's the composition percentage, and then the index is right here next to it in a little text. But what you can do here is, I've set my audience, or I set my population. Say I wanted to look at maybe, because we were looking in the Salt Lake DMA, maybe I wanted to look at the state of Utah. So one way that you could go about doing that is you could switch to county up here in define by, and that basically lets you choose, instead of looking at the whole US, you can then switch to counties specifically. Once this loads, you can see as it's coming in on the map, there's a lot of different counties. But so let me switch this to specific county. And now if I wanted to, I can go and search, if I search UT and then a comma, this will give me all of the counties in Utah. So if I just hit add all, it'll add all of these counties for me. And then once I hit apply, we'll just look at just the counties in Utah for this Office Depot audience. And so you can see over here on the right-hand side, like, Davis County is, the highest in both composition percentage and in index. And you can see how these sort of map out here. But if you remember now that I've done this, and I think I mentioned a minute ago, one of the benefits of saving something as a place set or as an inventory set is that it makes it really easy to map it out and sort of make some custom maps from here. You can do exactly that by going to this layers and display options tab. And this exists in some iteration or another in all three of these libraries. So, oops, here we go. So I'm just going to come here to this layers, or it opens up the layers tab by default. And each of these are things that exist in my account to some degree that I can add to this map. So I'm going to go to this place sets one and find that the SLC, let's see, here we go, SLC Office Depot. So I'll add that. I don't have any inventory sets I'm going to add, but you know what, let me change this, because by default it's going to make a purple marker. But if I click on this, I can actually change the icon itself. I can change the sort of color. Let me get like orange, something nice and kind of complementary. And I'm just going to hit apply, and it's going to map out those points of interest that I saved to my place set. So here you can see those are the 5 Office Depots in the DMA here. And this is just kind of how they map out across this DMA and across these counties. And you can see, kind of, I guess not coincidentally, the 3 counties that look like they have the highest composition percentage or index for this are some of the counties where these stores fall. So it's just kind of an interesting thing that you're now able to do, because we can also visualize out, where these people from these audiences come from. So just, again, and if anybody has any other questions as we're going through, please feel free to send them in. But yeah, this is something that you can do, if I had some inventory sets that I wanted to add as well from, that I had pulled in the past. If I have anything from Salt Lake City, I could add that here and it would visualize out as well. So you can make some, customized maps that way and color code things as you want that way.
And just to jump in, Brian, and this is a great way too, if there's sets of geographies that you often work with, you can preset them and use that as your custom geography set. I know that
exactly
was functionality that was in some of the legacy tools that now we're excited to have back. So oftentimes if you're maybe again East Coast example, oftentimes people are looking at the 5 boroughs of New York City or something like that, so they could ultimately create that by the counties and have that as a safe set.
Yeah, and I can actually show you, say you wanted to do exactly what Scott was just saying, but with the whole state of Utah right here, I could just hit the save icon down here, and then this will save my geography set. So I'll just call this just Utah by county. And basically what this does now, similar to how when you save an inventory set, basically like as soon as you save it, it's just really that group of inventory that you saved. It's not necessarily, it doesn't hold the measures that you saved it with. So by just saving this geography set, I've saved this set of counties as a whole set, but kind of regardless of metric or population. So when I saved it as a geography set, it just exists as these, I don't know, 15 counties or whatever it is. And I can come into the filter selection and then my saved geographies, and everything you saved as a geography set will be in here. And then you can, apply those, switch between those that way as well. Yeah, so I'm gonna switch over to the workspace module now and just sort of basically talk through this exact same scenario as if we were, exploring the market for the first time. We knew sort of some of the details of the RFP or whatever it was, and we wanted to explore the Salt Lake market and then see, what do we need to actually run this kind of campaign. So that's what you can do here in the workspace. And for anybody who is familiar with our legacy systems, ADS and OPlan, they basically exist within the workspace module now. So the market plan here is what the evolution of OPlan is, and then the inventory plan is what ADS evolved into. And I'll go through and show how to do both of those. Let's make a new project. As you can see, all these different white boxes here, these are all my different projects. So I'll just make a new one. We can call this SLC Office Depot. And as you can see here, I could give my project a description if I wanted to. You don't need to do it right here. You can always do it later. So now I'm looking at my blank project, but if I hit this pencil icon, I can give it a description. I can give it some tags. Yeah. And now what I can do, you can see I have no scenarios here, but in order to run a market plan or an inventory plan, I need to first make a scenario. And one of the really cool things is, let me just call this, we'll call it scenario 1. Sorry, so far away from the screen, I can't see it. If anyone is familiar with the Insight Suite and has used it sort of before the workspace update happened, you might remember, and for anybody who's not, basically before the update, market plan and inventory plan down here were sort of two independent things. But now with the update, basically anything you set in these parameters and these filters up here will carry over through both a market plan and an inventory plan. So, to say you could set up your market plan, explore market, figure out exactly how many units in that market you would need to reach whatever your goal is. And then you can switch right over to the inventory plan and actually just run some real metrics based on all the same things and not have to set anything else up again. So, if you wanted to go into the explore module and sort of graphically and on the map explore inventory and filter out that way and sort of find your way down to a specific set of inventory that way, that's one way that you could do it. But basically now that this has been redesigned, if you wanted to, you could run a market plan and explore the market and then just jump right over to the inventory plan and never have to touch the explore module if you don't want to. Yeah, so let me just go through and I'll just set this up sort of left to right and down as I was kind of exploring with the population library. So for my consumer profile, I want to find that same Office Depot audience. Okay, in the last 12 months, office supplies, perfect, so I'll add that. And by default, it adds person 0+, which is always, anytime you see total audience or total impressions in the Insight Suite, total is always against person 0+. So just as a note, I'm gonna remove that. I don't really need it in my audience here. Let me add my market. Again, we're gonna do the Salt Lake City DMA. Okay. And earlier, if you remember, I mentioned that the Explorer feature, or in the Explorer module, when you apply a market, it asks, or you are basically applying both a geographic filter and also an audience filter. So this is basically just asking, do you want to do that? So by saying yes, I'm filtering both my inventory and my audience base to the Salt Lake City DMA. Operators, I'm going to leave as everybody in the market because I just kind of want to explore the market as a whole. I'll put 1 week for my plan period, and then media and placement, let me just choose a media type, and I'll probably do just posters. So let's see. Add as an individual. There are a couple more things that you could add to your scenario here. If you click the edit icon up here, and then the spillover menu, you're able to add, actually, I don't think you even need to. I think if you just hit the spillover menu, you can just add these things. But then, so you can see I can add a threshold filter and I can add a media attributes filter. But now if I hit this pencil icon, I can actually stretch or shift around whatever I want to, So you can kind of customize this for your own layout if you want. Just sort of make it work however you want to. Yeah, so that's what you can do with that pencil icon. I'm not going to touch the threshold or media attribute filter, so I'm just going to remove those again. But just so you know, that's how you can get to those up there. And then the last thing I need before I run my market plan to find out what kind of units I'll need, I just need to set a delivery goal. And you can do that by 3 different things in here. You can do it based on the TRP plan goal, target in market impression plan goal, or a reach percent plan goal. I'll leave it as TRPs, and maybe let's say for this one we want, 35. So from here, all I really need to do now is just hit generate plans, because everything above this line is set as I want it, and I have my TRPs set as I want them. So I'll just hit generate plans. Let me scroll down now. So what this is basically going to do, as this is calculating, this is going to say, in order to get 35 TRPs against that Office Depot audience you have, you would need X amount of posters in this market. So that's basically what this is filling out here. And had I run a few different markets, Salt Lake City would be one line, maybe, Seattle would be a different line. You can, run each market as a different line. Had I added multiple audiences, I could click this. They would all be here in this dropdown and I could switch between them, but I could also hit all and I could compare all of them at once. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to basically run a few different at once. It's also a good way if you're sort of, considering a couple markets, maybe you could run a few different markets against the exact same things and just see, in order to get the same amount of TRPs, I would need to reach this many people, but it's a lot fewer in this market. So that's just kind of the kind of thing you can do with this as well. So this looks like it's done. Let me just open it up. Okay, so here's my result line. You can see my goal was 35 TRPs. We are just 30, about 3 over. So it's telling me here that I would need about 11 posters in this market to reach 30, well, it'd be 38 TRPs, but I would need at least 11 posters or about 11 posters to reach my 35 TRP goal. And this could be plus or minus a few. This is based on sort of one standard poster in this market. So it's kind of the median poster metric wise in this market. And so this is saying you would need 11 of the most median poster. So there might be some plus or minus with that. If I expand this operators drop down over here, I can see who's got this media type in this market. And this is always, this always changes to be reflective of whatever media type and market you have. So that's always different. But that's really all I need for my market plan. That's kind of all I would do for this. And then from here, I would just, keep this number of 11 in mind. And then I would just hop over to the inventory plan now. And I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, but when we were in the Explore module, you can choose from this sort of generic set of 5 different time lengths for your campaign. But once you're running an inventory plan, you can actually get really specific with it by clicking this specific button here. And then you have the ability to, you could type it in, but you can also, if you click on the calendar, you can choose any of these. So let's choose like next Monday, and then I'll choose one Monday after that. So I'm just going to do a week, but I just did a specific week. So it'll be the same as if I ran 1 week in here, but I might need to set it again. Oh no, it saved it. But it would be running just for this specific week. And you can actually, when you're running your inventory plan, you can actually spot by spot change the start and end dates if you wanted to. If there are certain pieces in your plan that run for a couple weeks, and then there are other pieces of inventory that run for a few weeks after that, you could set that up in here exactly how you want it to. So you can see I've got, my market, my audience here. Now all I need to do to actually run an inventory plan and get some numbers is I need to either add inventory from filters or add inventory a different way. Let's start with the add inventory button. So add inventory set. So sorry, I just skipped over that one. There are 3 different ways within here that you can actually add inventory. The first is you can load in a CSV from your own computer and just load it in. Say you're working on an RFP and it's got all the Geopath IDs or all the operator IDs or something like that. All you need as the required fields to upload your CSV right now are a spot ID field and a start date and an end date. And so once you load in your CSV, the next page after this will just match the headers and then it'll upload that way. Another way that you could add is from inventory sets. So, you know, any of my existing inventory sets, of which I have a ton, but you could add one or many of these to your plan this way. Also, if you have spot IDs and you wanted to, you know, go about it that way, you could just paste those right in here, either the Geopath spot ID or the operator ID. And then finally, the last way that you could do it, and this is pretty new, this came with the redesign as well, but this add inventory from filters button. And basically what this will do, I'll just click it, might take a second, but what this is going to do is it will pull in everything in the system that exists that meets these requirements. So it's going to pull in basically just every poster from Salt Lake DMA. And so this will start to populate. We'll have, I think when I did the market plan, there was maybe about 1,300 or so. So hopefully it doesn't take too long, but it might. And you know, if there are any questions while this is loading up, feel free to send them in. But yeah, basically as this is loading, it's just going to pull in all of the existing posters in this DMA. And then from there, I can go and, you know, individually remove some. I could filter, you know, I could export the whole thing and, you know, do my work in Excel, choose some there, and then come back and select fewer based on those IDs or something like that. So there's kind of a lot of flexibility to what you can do once you have inventory in your inventory plan. And this is still loading up, but we'll just open this up. So once it loads, we can see. Did we have any questions on anything?
Sorry, Brian, I was on mute. No questions yet, but you know, I think as that's loading in, you can also, if you want to jump into the Places tab and kind of show how that.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I think it will.
Yeah, that's a great point. I totally forgot about that. So in the Places tab, you can also then add any of the place sets that you have saved in the past. So I think this is I think this is loading from my.
It's still thinking about the stuff, but
yeah, I think it's about to load in the rest of the inventory plan. But once that does, I can go down and find that Office Depot list, those 5 Office Depots that I saved, and basically just add those to my plan here. And that way, when I export, oh, here we go. Let's try it. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Let me just search. SLC Office Depot. Here we go. So now that I've done that, you can see I've got my, you know, 5 locations that I added. And basically now that I've got this added, I've got my inventory plan should be loaded. Let's see. Well, it might still be loading, but basically, you know, now that I've got that added, the inventory plan's coming in. If I want to export, all I have to do is come up to this export scenario button, export as CSV, and then it gives me an option to choose which of these 3 tab items that I want to export. So I can export my market plan exactly as we ran it. It'll tell me, you know, you need 11 posters. I can export the inventory plan, which will have all of the inventory that we added. And then when I export places, it'll give me all of these addresses in Excel as well. So you can just download that. And I think if you have all 3 selected, it downloads as a zip file with 3 different CSVs within it. So let me just see if this worked. But maybe it didn't, but here, you know what? Let me just add inventory from a different thing. I think I have some old inventory sets that are also Salt Lake. Hopefully, maybe SLC. Sure. This is from an old request I was doing, Burger King posters. Let's try that. So yeah, so this works. So I'm going to, as an individual. So this should hopefully just add in real quick. But yeah, once you have everything added in, you'll have a big sort of line by line view of all the inventory that you added. And yeah, and then you can export right from there.
Mm-hmm. One thing too, while this is loading in, another feature that was originally in the Insight Suite, but then was kind of removed for a little bit as we worked on it and then put back in just recently is the ability of when you have play sets now, you can also do a radius around each of them. So oftentimes you may need to have like a set, maybe again, going to the Burger King example that you just pulled with that data, you may want I want to see all the inventory within a 5-mile radius around this set of Burger Kings or Office Depots or whatever it may be. So you can actually do that now fairly easily. And maybe before we jump off, I know we're getting tight on time, only a minute or two left, but maybe just show everybody where you can do that. Right? I don't know if that's too much, but
yeah, I'll do that in a second. I'm hoping that this loading is about to pop in. Yeah, this sometimes just takes a second to populate because it's doing calculations on itself. So that's okay. It's not, yeah. Let me just switch over rather than, yeah.
And one thing, Brian just clicked yes, leave the page. It's because he didn't save his scenario. So
yes, that's right. That was a bad practice.
Do is save your scenario. So.
Yeah, so you should be able to do this. It's still got them loaded up, actually. That's funny. So I think I think it's in the filter inventory tab. Yes. So in filter inventory, and then you go to location. There are a couple of really cool features in here. Let me just really quick. In this filter by specific geography, you can actually search down to the zip code level, which is really cool. And in saved geography sets, I can find my, I can use this to filter by whatever I saved in that population mapping. And then here I can actually sort of, before I get to that last one, I could draw my own radius. Say I wanted to put a radius really anywhere. I can draw it out foot by foot, or I could draw a custom polygon that way too. But then exactly what Scott was talking about here, this filter by place set and radius. So once you have something saved as a place set, let me just find it. SLC, Office Depot, here we go. And let's do 2 miles. Why not? There weren't that many of them. We'll do 3 miles if I can. Yeah, and then apply sets. So this should then apply this inventory or this place set with a 3-mile radius around each of the locations in it, and that should filter inventory that way. So let's just get that applied. There we go. It's, Scott, since we're getting close on time, is there anything, maybe I'll finish this up and we can jump back to this at the end if it takes a second. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to say right at the end here.
Yeah, I just wanted to, see if there were any other questions as we're kind of winding down. I know, again, we're right at the top of the hour, but wanted to let everyone know that all this webinar and all of our other webinars are always available in our Geek Out library. And then I also wanted to just remind everybody about tomorrow's session. It's going to be a really great session. We're going to have a panel of speakers from Brooklyn Outdoor, from Adams, and from Yesco. And we're going to really talk about how operators are navigating the COVID crisis and, what are they looking forward, right? We don't want to look back. Let's look forward and kind of talk about how they're preparing for markets to open and things like that. So hopefully, if you listen in, everybody will be able to kind of take one kind of actionable thing from the session. That's what the goal. So, Brian, you can show this, and then if we want to just switch over to the deck, and
yeah, sounds good.
Last few slides. But.
I think it filtered out. I mean, it did the filter. It's just taking a second to optimize the map. But here we go. You can kind of see here. You can see each of those radii popping up on each of these. Let me just get a little bit closer if I can.
And that's okay. I mean, I just mostly wanted everybody to know how to do it. I know it's probably thinking right now the tool.
Yeah, but you can see.
You'll be able to look at each of those individual areas and see the different inventory where it falls within each of the units as well, or within each of the points of interest.
Oh, it might have just caught up. Let's see. But you can see, within a 3-mile radius of those 5 points, there's about 1,200 units. And then from here, you know, I could filter that down by any number of ways, you know, media type, operator, anything like that.
Okay.
I think we can give it another second, but you know, here, do you want to, let's switch back over to that deck. I'll stop sharing for a second.
Sure. And again, just a couple of things I wanted to share before we head out. And again, largely, I think I covered most of it already, just voicing over. But again, Candace Simons from Brooklyn Outdoor, Lee Houghton from Yesco, and Janine Dotson from Adams will be on a call tomorrow. And it's tomorrow from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern time. There's still time to register. We'll send out a reminder tomorrow morning in our newsletter. And again, if you haven't signed up, please do, or tell a friend about it as well. And also, again, this session and any of our past sessions, I know even earlier in the call I mentioned some of the webinars we've done to help train everyone on the impressions variation dashboard, as well as the mobility dashboard. You can find all the most recent sessions kind of here as thumbnails, but also, there's you can click through and go to our actual YouTube channel and see the entire playlist of out-of-home office hours as well. So, and as always, I know we've mentioned it a few times throughout the call, but geekout@geopath.org if you ever have any questions or if you need anything, you know, reset your password, questions about the tool, or you know, help pulling data, reach out to us there and we can help you out with all that. And if there aren't any other questions, you know, I don't know, Brian, if that's coming.
It's still loading.
Yeah,
I probably don't want to make
I
it
know
hold on.
we're asking it to do a lot, and sometimes translating through the Zoom, it maybe takes a little time.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to thank everybody for joining today and for sticking with us. I know we're a couple minutes over, but we hope you found it valuable. And again, always feel free to reach out to us at Geek Out if you need anything. But thanks again, everyone, and thanks, Brian, for walking us through all that.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
All right, have a great day, everyone.
Bye.